Everybody, and welcome to the Friday night edition of Student Loan Justice. My name is Alan Collins. I'm the founder of StudentLoanJustice.org. We're the oldest, largest, and pretty much only citizens group actually fighting for student loan justice. So if you're new to the group, welcome. Where have you been? We are really the only group in the country fighting for the only realistic way to cancel all federally owned student loans, and also fighting for the return of bankruptcy to the small percentage of student loans that will remain when all federal student loans are canceled. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them out if you're on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, sorry, this already happened, so sorry about that. It was just too bad because most of our people watch us through YouTube. But let me just say, for those of you who are new to the group, welcome. As I said, for 15 years, we fought very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. Founding fathers called for bankruptcy protections ahead of the power to declare war and ahead of the power to raise an army and build a navy, believe it or not. People like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Robert Morris, many other of the founders, they were being absolutely wrecked under predatory debt to British banks and merchants. So when they wrote the Constitution, they called for uniform bankruptcy laws, ahead of the power to all that stuff I just said. Build a navy, declare war, raise an army, even ahead of the power to build, a post office, which is in the news these days. So the founding fathers felt that bankruptcy was very important. Well, lo and behold, here we are 250 years later. Student loans are the only type of loan in this country that have been uniquely stripped of not only bankruptcy protections, but also statutes of limitations. They've been very restricted with fair debt collection practice laws. Truth in lending laws don't apply to federal student loans. Even state usury laws do not apply to certainly federal student loans. So this is a predatory, unconstitutional lending system, folks, and we are under its wrath and have been for decades now. We've been around for 15 years. We've been featured top story on 60 Minutes and NPR and PBS and Fox News and Vice News, and most recently we were featured just last week on Fox Business News in Newsweek. I cannot tell you how close we came to doing a national interview on one of the major cable news shows last Friday. Unfortunately, Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and that sort of got preempted, but we are on a roll, folks. I have never been more optimistic than I am right now here today. And just to maybe in a rough way segue to what I was saying, bankruptcy protections being removed from student loans is indeed the core of this problem. But folks, I am here to tell you, it's frankly probably too late to return bankruptcy protections to student loans. Because even before the pandemic, 80%, 4 out of 5 of all student loan borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. So there's 55 million people in the country with student loans or who are co-signed on them. That's 44 million people who were losing sleep about their student loans before the pandemic. Now, hopefully I don't need to tell you, we shed 50 million jobs in February, March, April, May, June, July. I think last I checked, only like 8 or 9 million of those jobs have come back. And there's a good chance that many, perhaps even most of those jobs will not come back. So while Wall Street is doing great, this recovery, suffice it to say, has been very uneven. So up to this point, we've thrown, depending on how you count it, $5 trillion, 6, 7, up to $8 trillion, if you include the stuff the Federal Reserve is doing, in stimulus to the country, including $500 billion in loans, PPP loans, that don't need to be repaid. So folks, I am here to tell you this is now a failed lending system, and the only thing that makes sense at this point, because returning bankruptcy will only ensure that we throw 10, 20, even more million people into bankruptcy, which is stupid. It won't stimulate the economy, certainly won't win many votes over. So what has to happen now is, very simply, the loans must be canceled. Now, all the loan cancellation plans that you're hearing about until very recently, except for ours, would never work. The thing that Joe Biden's saying about canceling up to $10,000, the thing that Bernie Sanders was saying about canceling all student loans, and Elizabeth Warren, and on and on and on. All of those proposals require passing a law that raises a tax, 1 trillion, 2 trillion, who knows, in order to pay for this loan cancellation. But I'm telling you, folks, all those other plans are nonsense. The loans don't need to be paid for. 85% or more of all student loans are owned by the federal government. They were already paid for by the taxpayers. The taxpayers don't need to pay twice. And by the way, of the $1.5 trillion in student loans outstanding to the federal government, a very small fraction of that 1.5 trillion is actual unpaid principal. The large majority of it, and nobody knows what the true ratio is, but I feel very confident in saying that the actual amount of that 1.5 trillion that's actually unpaid principal is probably less than a third. So it's less than $500 billion, which is, by the way, the same amount that they threw out to small businesses for PPP loans that don't have to be repaid. So all the other loan cancellation proposals are garbage. Congress is never going to pass that law. There's no good reason to. It turns out that the president, whether it's President Trump or the next president, the office of the president has all the executive authority needed to cancel 100% of all federally owned student loans. And as I said, that's 85% of all student loans. If you're sitting here watching me, you probably have federally owned student loans. So the president can do this tomorrow. Heck, he could do it tonight while he's watching Tucker Carlson. And he would not need congressional approval. No law would need to be passed. Just a simple stroke of the pen on an executive order. Not one dime in taxpayer money would need to be forked over to the lenders. They've already been paid. The loans have already been made. They don't need to be paid twice. And this would not add, unlike the PPP program, this would not add 1 penny to the national debt. So folks, you heard it here first. There is absolutely no better, more cheaper, more easy, expedient, and I would say better targeted way. There is no better way to get rid of these loans. It was a failed lending system to begin with. Push the reset button on this nationally threatening big government monstrosity. Clear the decks, set us free, massively stimulate the economy, and do it without adding 1 penny to the national debt. This is the low-hanging fruit on the fiscal economic stimulus tree. So our argument is strong, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm very happy to report that our petition, we've been thinking about this. In fact, we've been writing about it. We were interviewed about it as early as last, I think, August in Vice News. But last March, the petition we started, I'm very happy to report, now has 600,000+ signatures. And that's really good. Just over the past 2 weeks, we've been featured, as I said, in Fox Business and Newsweek and in The Guardian and many Yahoo News, many other news outlets, including like a dozen or so local news stations. And that's all thanks to you. Thank you, by the way. If you helped contact news organizations over the past 2 or 3 weeks, thank you. It's working. Keep doing it. And as I said, we were so close to getting up on live national news on one of the big 3 major cable news networks last Friday, and I think our time will come. It's only a matter of time. Maybe the best news that I have for you, though, is that now we are not the lone leading voice in the wilderness. Other people have come to join us in our call. Most notably, last week, in fact, last Thursday, Friday, Democrats, Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer, they introduced their own Senate proposition, their own Senate bill, calling for exactly what we're calling on President Trump or the next president to cancel federally owned student loans by executive order. So, yeah, we started something. We are now in play. We are now in the big leagues. Now, having said that, I have to be honest. We are a bipartisan group. We don't like or hate either party. We tell the truth as it is, like it or hate it. If we insult the candidate that you like or criticize them, well, hang around. We're probably going to criticize the other guy as well, because there's a lot of bad guys on this, and neither the Dems or the Republicans have been good guys. And that's just evidenced by the fact that here we are 15 years after starting this group, and $1.3 trillion has been thrown onto our backs in the form of predatory, unconstitutional, indefensible, and at this point, completely ridiculous and fiat student debt. We don't have to take this, people. So having said that, I have to make the point that the Schumer, Warren, and you may be a strong Democrat, I respect that. The Schumer, Warren proposal, sorry guys, but it's crap. They're not calling for the cancellation of all federally owned student loans. They're calling for the president to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt. Now, folks, we've been doing this for, as I said, a long, long time. We can read between the lines now. And up to $50,000 could mean literally anything. It's nonsense. I mean, if I had to characterize this proposal, I'd say it was just kind of an election year sort of gimmick. However, it's not meaningless. I mean, this really validates that we are on exactly the right path. And who knows? Joe Biden can and should, at a minimum, echo this call put out by Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer. And I think there's a good chance that he probably will. What we are pushing Biden to do, and he's very close to getting our endorsement, by the way, but we're not quite there yet. We endorsed the Green Party 4 years ago. We don't want to have to do that again. So, yeah, we're pushing Biden very hard to do, at a minimum, pledge to return bankruptcy protections to all federal student loans by executive order. He can do that. And obviously, like Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer, we now believe strongly that Joe Biden should additionally pledge to cancel not up to $50,000, but rather all federally owned student loans. That's what we're pushing for. And yes, indeed, we are pushing President Trump to do precisely the same thing. Not precisely. Not to just pledge to do that, because that's kind of cheesy. He is in the seat of power right now. So President Trump has to actually do it. Now, I know a lot of people watching this for the first time, they may say, that just doesn't sound like that's going to happen. That's just like, yeah, that's a little bit too out there. Well, consider this, folks. This lending system is toast. It's failed. Of the $1.5 trillion in federal student loan debt, the reality is that the federal government, it would be stunning if they got even $200 billion of that $1.5 trillion paid to them. Even that is probably a high bar. Nobody is paying on their student loans right now. And if you think when this payment suspension ends, if you think that many, or maybe even any people are going to resume paying, you're wrong. You're just wrong. The zeitgeist, this lending system is vanishing into a mist of illegitimacy as we speak. There is no saving it. This lending system has got to be ended. And the people running this lending system, they know in their heart of hearts that that is the truth. Everybody, all of our opposition, they know, if they're being honest with themselves, that this student loan system cannot be allowed to continue. Even before the pandemic, the default rate among everybody walking around right now was going to be like 75, 80% failed lending system. $100 billion a year in interest alone was being sucked out of this country. Interest alone. Failed lending system. So, not only is our call for the cancellation of this lending system not only realistic, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it's inevitable. It's just math. You know, as I said, they could return bankruptcy protections to all student loans tomorrow, and that would pretty much ensure that 15, 20, 25, maybe even more million people of the 44 million people out there in the country who were never going to be able to repay their loans would end up having to file for bankruptcy. That doesn't stimulate the economy. That doesn't make any people incredibly happy. It doesn't end the lending system, which absolutely needs to happen. And everybody on the other side of this knows that that's the truth. And also, we vote. 55 million people in the country with student loans, 55 million, or who are co-signed on them. So they have them or they're co-signed. Probably about 49 million have them directly, another 5 or 6 million co-signed on them. 80% of those, very distressed, never going to be able to pay. They're losing sleep over their student loans or the loans that they are co-signed on. That's 44 million voters. Now, Donald Trump won the last election with 60 million votes. 44 million voters is getting close to enough people. 55 million is very close to enough voters to elect a president outright. So what I'm telling you, folks, is this is now the biggest voter bonanza in the modern history of politics, perhaps in our nation's history. Now, 4 years ago, we weren't a thing. Sure, there were 44 million distressed student loan borrowers out there, but they had no one to vote for. Hillary had air. Trump had nothing. That is now changed. You know, Joe Biden is at least mouthing the words. He's at least saying that he's going to fight for the return of bankruptcy protections. He's at least saying that he wants to cancel student loans. And that is enough to sway a very large number of those 44 million distressed student loan borrowers. All things being equal, Donald Trump having said absolutely nothing meaningful on this up until this point. So if Trump and Biden, and by the way, think about every other political issue out there, whether it's healthcare or immigration or gun control or abortion or you name it. And I will show you an issue around which the battle lines are very well drawn. These are mature, well-defined, highly partisan issues. The student loan issue is the wild freaking West. Neither party has managed to wrap their arms around this issue. So this is a voter bonanza, the likes of which we've never before seen. We, the pioneers on this, you and me, and everybody watching this, and even the 600,000 people who signed our petition, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not, we are indeed the pioneers. And what we do between now and November 3rd, that's like 39 days, what we do will determine whether these loans are still with us come November 3rd, or potentially whether they're gone. You know, President Trump is a wild president. If things aren't going his way, he sees the votes in this. He sees the writing on the wall. It is a failed lending system. There's no better thing that anyone can do at this point than to just get rid of it. As conservative Grover Norquist would say, take it to the bathroom and drown it in the tub. It could happen if he is pushed. So, this is your call to action. I'm going to ask you to do one simple thing tonight. We every day from here on out, and for the past 2 weeks, we've been asking all of our members to do one simple thing. Maybe it's contact one news organization. Maybe it's send a Twitter to Jill Biden. Maybe it's contact the White House. Maybe it's contact Joe Biden. Right now, tonight, and we're going to roll this out tomorrow, is going to be our crowdfunding blitz. we're going to hit the debate moderators for the the first presidential debate, which is happening in Cleveland on Tuesday. We will be there, by the way, thanks to everybody's support. We are going to push all three of the moderators to ask the critical question. There are 44 million distressed student loan borrowers in the country right now. We're in a pandemic. Why not cancel all federally owned student loans by executive order at no additional cost to the taxpayer and without adding one penny to the national debt? We are going to blitz the crap out of every moderator. There's three of them. First one is Chris Wallace. If you can find a good email for him, let us know. Chris Wallace, Fox News. Second guy is Steve Scully. Same thing. We need to find a good email for Steve Scully. Look, between now and tomorrow morning, please try and find a good email for him. I assume these guys already have easily findable Twitters. The third moderator is Kristen Welkner, I believe. She is a reporter. Well, just Google her. Google debate moderators. Kristen Welkner. I believe she's with CNN, but she may be with like ABC or something. But find her and get an email for her. You know, folks, we've got 650,000 people in our group now. If you step up and help us, if everybody does, we could shut down the email inboxes of all three of those moderators. We could make, and I'm confident we will make a very, very strong point with them before the debate. And there's a good chance they will ask the question, what about canceling student loans by executive order? It's been thrown around. There's a petition with hopefully nearly 1 million signatures on it by Tuesday. I would like to see that. I would like to see our petition explosively grow. And when you add 3 people you know onto that petition, we will have 2 million people on it, or somewhere very close to that. Yeah, if you add 3 people that you know with student loans, if you know 5 people with student loans, 4 of them are freaking out about them, whether they tell you or not. So if you add even 3 people you know with student loans onto that petition between now and Tuesday, we will have we'll have like 2.5 million people on that petition. So do that. So yeah, that's the call to action. Find the emails for those 3 people I just mentioned. You can rewind 4 minutes and get their names again. Okay, I'll say them again. Chris Wallace, Kristen Welkner, and Steve Scully. Get emails for them. And then tomorrow, check back either on our Facebook group or maybe you're on our mailing list. I don't know. But check back. And email all of those 3 people and tell them to ask that question. Help out, guys. We have a massive muscle to flex. But that's only going to happen when you play along. I know it sounds trite and stupid, but you know, even that little tiny amount of effort, when spread over 650,000 people, becomes an unstoppable force. We stand at the pinnacle of getting these loans gone, ladies and gentlemen. Think about your own life and how much better it would be to not have to think about these loans. Think very carefully about that. And you know, I think I'm just going to leave it there at that. I've said enough. I've given you a very simple, very important thing for you to do. Do it. Check back on the group. Check back at our website, but on the Facebook group is better. It's facebook.com/groups/SLJ group. And let's nail this to the wall. We're getting very strong very quickly, people, but that will only continue when you help. That's how democracy works. That's how democracy has always worked. So I hope that you can tell by the gleam in my eye how optimistic I am right now. And I hope that I've inspired you to get off your ass. This is not a wait, watch, worry, and expect that somebody else is going to do your work for you proposition. This is a get your hands dirty, make it happen struggle. So let's band together and win this. Let's not hang separately, because I guarantee you we will hang separately if you do nothing. So good luck. Godspeed. Let me put this up for you one last time. Spread it like the wind, like wildfire. And God bless. Oh, and please donate if you possibly can. StudentLoanJustice.org. We don't survive on much at all, but we can't do it on nothing. Thank you.